according to a fresh report filed by the Northern Ireland Life and Times Survey, a majority of people in Northern Ireland believe that the Belfast Agreement needs to be reformed. The survey shows that 55% believe that the Belfast Agreement needs at least some reforms. Meanwhile, 1 in 6 people in Northern Ireland believe that it should be removed altogether. I will be taking you through the survey as it comes during Rishi Sunak and Joe Biden's tango in Belfast. We are also going to be discussing this with some of the people who understand this space. Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, joins us on the show. Ravinder Sachdev, Global Strategist, President of Image India Institute, also with us on the program. Professor Madhav Nalapat, a regular feature on our programs, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, also with us on the show. Last but by no means the least, Mr. Gautam Mukherjee, Senior Journalist, is joining us on the broadcast as well. And as promised, let's in fact take you through some of the stats that have come out as a result of this survey. As you can see, that a number of people, as compared to what happened in 2021 and 2022, have changed their mind about what should be made of this Good Friday Agreement. Well, there's not much of a difference in between these 2 years. If you talk about if the agreement remains on the best basis for governing Northern Ireland as it is, 25% of the people said, well, they prefer status quo. 44% people, that is a jump of 10% from 21, say that the agreement remains best basis but needs minor changes. In fact, in another area where we talk about if the agreement no longer is on good basis, should be substantially changed, there is an increase from 8 to 11%. That's almost 25 to 30%. And of course, if you compare it from 21 to 22, a lot of people feel that the agreement never was on good basis and should be removed. Predominant part of these people also felt that they don't know or don't care. More opinions coming in. If you talk about the age difference and how they responded, well, if you look at the 65 plus category right here on the top, 32% believe that the agreement is good, it should be preserved. People between the ages of 55 and 64 rather say that it should also continue to be, and people in the ages of 65 also believe, a whopping percent also believes that it is a good agreement but may need slight changes. Of course, the younger category talks about only in terms of why this needs some changes. A whopping 34% of people between the ages of 18 to 24 believe that this is an agreement that should have some changes. And if you look at the category, the same category from 18 to 24, they also will go on to say that this agreement should be removed. It is not in the best interest of the Northern Irish people. Let's also talk about the community here. The nationalists, of course, predominantly feel that this is a good agreement, and equal or almost the same amount of people from the Nationalist Party also feel that this is a good agreement but needs changes. If you go down that same aisle, there are people who of course disagree, but those two categories cover most of the points that we are trying to address over here. What should be the long-term policy of the Northern Ireland in terms of going ahead from here? They feel that the Reds actually feel that the devolution in UK is something that they propose, and that's almost between 50 to 60%, or 58% of the people feel that way. In fact, the Irish unification is something which 22% of the people feel should be addressed, and direct rule in the UK is also something which is propagated in some of these stats. Will a united Ireland, United Kingdom exist in 20 years is what the next survey was all about. Well, very few people felt that this was likely to happen. A whopping number felt that it is definitely going to happen, and there is an even chance. 13% of the people felt like that, and in fact 23% of the people felt that it was quite unlikely that this was going to happen. Levels of trust in those with governance responsibility, well, if you look at the completely trust part, that is perhaps a weak area in the survey. And if you look at the completely distrust part, between 60 to 100% people felt that they were not sure of what was going on. The UK government was in fact surveyed, the Irish government was surveyed, the EU, the NI executive and the NI civil service was also in fact asked questions upon. We're going to start with our discussion now. Professor Nalapa, this is obviously a responsibility that the United Kingdom has been trying to delineate, for the lack of a better word, for quite some time. How do you think the Irish people feel about what's going on in UK and with the UK, especially with Brexit coming in?
Well, I'd like to say that the Irish Republic is entirely different from Northern Ireland in the sense that Northern Ireland is a part of the United Kingdom. Now, you have a small proportion of individuals who are totally opposed to the Accords of 25 years ago. And the reason is they want Northern Ireland to be entirely Protestant. They in fact don't want Catholics in Northern Ireland. They want the Catholics to move to their west and go on to the Irish Republic, which frankly is absurd. So far as the Catholics are concerned, there's a group of Catholics that says there should be unity between the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland. Well, that's not going to happen. Not only because you have a very strong Catholic element, a non-Catholic element in Northern Ireland, but because frankly, being in the UK and at the same time having a flexible border with the Irish Republic is in a sense getting the best of both the worlds. And here I'd like to say, it was actually a very unstatesmanlike act for Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister Liz Truss, Priti Patel, and some other Tories to try and defeat Rishi Sunak's Windsor Accords, because those Windsor Accords were absolutely essential to keeping the peace in Ireland and keeping the peace in the whole of Ireland. And if they had been torpedoed, Northern Ireland would have gone into a state of chaos. So it was extremely, if I may say so, it just shows their short-sighted perspective of getting the fringe vote that made such leaders vote against an accord signed by the Prime Minister of their own party. So I'd again like to say, first of all, Vineet, I don't believe you're going to have any kind of an attempt at comprehensive reform of the agreement, of the Good Friday Agreement, because this is a very sensitive package. You touch one part of it, every other part will fall apart. So that is the way, Ambassador Mukherjee has negotiated several such agreements and which have held the test of time. And Ambassador well knows what I'm saying, that if you touch one part of it and try to change that, the entire thing may fall apart. And if that happens, it's bad for Northern Ireland, it's bad for the UK, it's bad for the Irish Republic. And I'd like to say one thing, Rishi Sunak pulled off a miracle. Boris Johnson, frankly, could have made no headway with the European Union. But despite Brexit, despite all the nasty words that have been exchanged between the EU and the UK's during the Brexit controversy and following it, Rishi Sunak and Ursula von der Leyen were able to get a sensible agreement. I think that's a huge plus, and I think it's good for the UK and good for the Northern Ireland and for the Irish Republic that this happened.
Right, absolutely. Ambassador Mukherjee, your perspective on this. This agreement happened 30 odd years ago. The Americans were involved then as well. I remember Bill Clinton was perhaps a part of this whole orchestration. A couple of Nobel Prizes were also thrown in as a result of this peace. And Northern Ireland has been peaceful after this accord. In fact, the border between the main island and Northern Ireland is, barely visible now. It's not as vivid as it used to be. But of course, Northern Ireland has been facing a number of problems ever since, Britain opted out of the European Union in 2016. Do you think it has left Northern Ireland in a bit of a limbo? Because the Assembly and the Executive that comprise the power-sharing government has not been functioning properly.
Well, first of all, I would like to say, Vineet, that I completely agree with the assessment of Professor Nalapat, and I'd add a few more elements to it. First is that when Brexit was negotiated, it was unfortunate that the then British Prime Minister Boris Johnson chose to ignore the implications for the Good Friday Agreement. He could have easily negotiated a Brexit right then with the agreement that has now been crafted in a very statesman-like way, if I may say, between Ursula von der Leyen and Rishi Sunak, he could have just incorporated it in the Brexit agreement. Then there would have been no need for it to be re-ratified by the British Parliament, and the Good Friday Agreement and peace in Northern Ireland would prevail. Therefore, I have to say with regret that it's not just in India that politicians behave in this manner, where they don't keep in mind the country's overall national interest. In this particular case, I have to say with regret that Boris Johnson did not look at the overall interest of the United Kingdom when he just went ahead with a very rushed Brexit and brushed aside the concerns of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Now, in this particular case, the beauty of this agreement was that it safeguards the Good Friday Agreement. It enables British goods not to be kept waiting for hours at the border, and therefore it's good for British trade because those goods move seamlessly through Northern Ireland to Republic of Ireland and further, which also enables, in a way, the smooth trade between European Union and United Kingdom despite Brexit. That was the beauty of the agreement, that it, on one hand, it enables smooth trade between these two entities, and on the other, it ensured that the peace would not break down. You must have been very young, Vineet, when the Northern Ireland crisis was at its limit. It was a very messy affair. It was very bloody on both sides. Both behaved like true fanatics. And it was, if you look at Northern Ireland today, it seems a miracle that 25 years later, there is actually peace prevailing in Ireland, all over Ireland, including Northern Ireland. I would say that if for short-sighted political reasons, the Conservatives decide that this is a good way to bring down Rishi Sunak, who otherwise would have a huge diplomatic victory on his hands, at the cost of the peace of Northern Ireland and the territorial integrity of the United Kingdom, it's a very unfortunate state of affairs. I hope better sense will prevail, and I hope that the pressure that the Americans are putting privately on the DUP will have some results, because when the Good Friday Agreement was signed in the first place, the Americans used their undoubted clout with the IRA and the DUP to make the agreement go through. And I understand that one of the reasons for the visit of President Biden is precisely to use this kind of pressure to make sure that the agreement remains and to make sure that there is peace in Northern Ireland. So it's a very precarious situation, Vineet. We have to watch and wait and see what happens. Vineet.
All right, Gautam, do you think that at the heart of the matter, and even according to political scientists who've been monitoring this situation, the Good Friday Agreement was predominantly focused on ending the bloodshed, but it largely failed to integrate and reconcile the warring communities?
Yeah, Vineet, 30 years ago, it was, as Ambassador Mukherjee pointed out, a very different world. I mean, they even tried to blow up Margaret Thatcher, and she narrowly escaped. They blew up the bathroom, she happened to be, or they blew up the bedroom and she happened to be in the bathroom at the Conservative Party conference in Brighton. There were regular bomb blasts in and around 10 Downing Street. Now, today, looking at this survey, I find that the young people don't know what to make of it. It was before their time, and they don't really have a view. Overall, there is a decline in the percentage that oppose a unification of the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Now, there are three factions, prominent ones in Northern Ireland, which, with slight variations on the theme, but the fact is that the survey kicked up a status quo and said, okay, let's just leave it as it is, because all three factions seem confused as to where to go next. As far as the UK the British Parliament goes, their job is to try and hang on to Northern Ireland. But what are they offering? What are they really giving Northern Ireland, apart from sort of treating it as an ex-colony in an uneasy truce? So I think in the medium term, particularly if the British economy does not deliver enough for Northern Ireland to want to stay, they may explore their look at reunification with the Republic of Ireland, irrespective of how well the EU does, because that also is in flux of late. But I think the destiny of Northern Ireland is not to stay in the status quo that this particular survey seems to have thrown up. Vineet.
Right, Mr. Sajdev, regardless of how the situation is poised today, it still stands as an example, a precedent of what diplomacy and, careful and principled negotiation is capable of achieving.
Thank you, Vineet. A great discussion, what thoughtful diplomacy can achieve. However, you achieve something, sure, you have peace, but the way the agreement is structured, it is in a limbo. The communities have been guaranteed a certain number of seats, both the nationalists 40% and the unionists 40%, right? This is a form of democracy, apparently, which is known as, I figured out this word today after getting to know your topic, consociationalism, wherein for each community, there are a certain number of seats reserved. So the way this has been, structured, basically what I was looking to figure out was, why is there such a, limbo, as you're saying, in the political process within North Ireland? So the way their assembly is structured, and the way their first minister and the second minister, let's say the deputy, are elected. One is supposed to be from the one party, from the unionists, and the deputy minister has to be from the nationalists. And if one of them resigns, the other also has to resign. In a way, it's like you're on a single ticket together, one from each representation. So there is a lot of, I think the structuring is something, okay, there's a similar pattern apparently in Switzerland also, in Lebanon also, in Belgium also, where you have a certain federal, but the political power structures are supposed to be, proportionate to the communities. So that's one big issue. And then it comes up to the whole idea between the unionists and the Republicans or the nationalists. They have differences on abortion, on same-sex or sex marriage, etc. Language. The nationalists want more Irish language out there. The unionists want more English out there. Okay. In between, for 3 years, the assembly was not working between 17 to 20, perhaps. Yeah, due to some scandal in bribery or some sort of scandal in renewable energy. The bottom line being that it does not seem to me that this system will deliver for the people of Ireland or North Ireland. And to top it has been this whole Brexit issue. Now, the unionists are unhappy because they think that if the custom border is made at the sea, then it kind of, alienates them from their mother country, which is the UK. They're not an integral part of the UK, right? On the other hand, they want the borders with Ireland and between North Ireland and Ireland to remain free for the free flow of, convenience and ease, etc. How will this be resolved? I really don't understand. So to my mind, what would happen, as I think all our panelists are implying, also my sense would be that over a period of time, slowly, the support for a unification would increase. But then the issue would be that, if there is support for unification on what terms, because in the North, let's say again, there are these Protestants who would want to, retain their own culture and whatever ideology. So would it be that North Ireland could combine with Ireland and be an autonomous, have some degree of autonomy within Ireland? Would that be the end game? But it is heading perhaps towards a unification because British economy working, not delivering. And primarily, I think Brexit has kind of accentuated this drift. And as of now, the assembly is non-functional out there.
Professor Nalapat, Concluding thoughts, starting with you, sir. Well, this is also perhaps a lesson in peace, that agreements are never final, and with the changing times, there needs to be a regular renewal to endure and sustain. We are looking at a time and age where social media plays a big role in forming opinions.
Well, Vineet, it's interesting that Taoiseach, that is the Prime Minister of Ireland, is of Indian ancestry. His father was Indian, Leo Varadkar, and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is of Indian origin. Both parents are from India. Rishi Sunak. That's very interesting. Now, I quite agree with the points that have been raised, and Rabinder has very thoughtfully, pointed to the problems regarding customs and flow of traffic. But as the ambassador pointed out, the Windsor Agreement that's been worked out with Ursula von der Leyen, really within the framework of Brexit, it provides a reasonably good solution. Now, the DUP fanatics would like, frankly, that the Irish Republic be, in a sense, cut off completely. And they don't like any kind of a flow of goods to the Irish Republic. Now, that would harm economic development in Northern Ireland. And very simply, I would tell you, today, the Protestants and the Catholics are not what they were 50 years ago, not what they were 25 years ago. They're a lot more moderate. You have a large number of Protestants and Catholics marrying each other, and frankly, they don't care who's Protestant, who's Catholic, or what happens to the children, whether they become Protestant or Catholic or whatever. So the situation has changed. There's no question about it. And as correctly has been identified, I think it was Gautam who did that it depends on the economy. If the hard Brexiteers, as the ambassador correctly says, led by an irresponsible Boris Johnson, who is frankly of the view that if either he's the prime minister or he will wreck whoever is the prime minister's prospects, irrespective of what happens to Britain. If that kind of a situation is there in the UK, and as a consequence, economic growth suffers, you're going to have a problem. I want to end by saying that because of Britain's leaving Brexit, it's much more difficult now for businesses to operate in Northern Ireland, because people who are in Northern Ireland cannot travel as easily to the continent, to the rest of the continent, as they did in the past when there was no Brexit. So that is a factor which is actually thinking of making many of them move their offices to the Irish Republic. So this kind of a pull is taking place. And as correctly has been said, after all, it's all economics, especially to the young. And if the UK's economic situation worsens, then I think the prospects of unification, irrespective of community, will only grow. There's no doubt that I have to agree with my co-panelists on that.
All right, Ambassador Mukherjee, quick closing comments, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that the Good Friday Agreement, the whole power sharing arrangement, it betrays the British experience in pre-partition India, when they tried these mixed constituencies, and they allocated seats to Hindus and Muslims irrespective of the percentage. Actually, it was all politics that dictated it, and it was thanks to our nationalist leaders that we rejected the whole concept. This was the seats, as Rabinder says, has got nothing to do with the actual numerical proportion of the population of Christians and of Catholics and Protestants. It was a pure political arrangement, which was mentored by the US president to bring peace and to keep the unity of the United Kingdom together. Otherwise, if you look at it, Vineet, what is Northern Ireland but a piece of territory carved out of Ireland by colonial conquest, like Scotland? So that's the reality. In my opinion, if the economy worsens, either they agree to the Windsor Agreement, or there will be a movement towards unification, which will be met with bloody reprisals by the Protestant side, because they may, I agree with Professor Nalapat, they are much more moderate, and in fact, even within Ireland, they have modified some of their abortion laws, etc. But the whole concept of the IRA, when they say Ireland forever in their own language, that will come up again, and there will be the most bloody conflict if there is movement towards unification, because the British will not allow it. They will fight it to their last soldier. So I think on both sides, I hope good sense prevails. I hope the DUP is finally outvoted in Parliament. I hope the Windsor Agreement stays, because if the Windsor Agreement goes, the rest of the Brexit package, Vineet, also goes, because the Windsor Agreement upholds many of the grey areas which the Brexit agreement of Boris Johnson did not address. If Windsor goes, Brexit goes.
Right, ma'am.
Brexit goes. The trade and economy of the United Kingdom
All right,
will
ma'am.
take further downward dive. Vineet.
All right, Gautam and Mr. Sajdev, quickly, 10 seconds to each one of you. No time left.
Well, one point that might have some bearing, though of course one doesn't know how long Biden will be in the saddle, is that Biden is only the second Roman Catholic president of the United States. And he, I think, leans towards Dublin. The pictures of his meetings with Rishi Sunak, the body language is he's not listening to Rishi Sunak. He is not very interested in trade deals. He finds Britain trying to equate and stand at the high table at the G7 irritating. Right. He's not going to the coronation. But, you know, either he's got a year and a half or 2 years to go, in which case he may not do very much on this. But otherwise, I think he comes from Dublin. His family comes from Dublin in the first place. And I think he would like to see reunified Ireland. And if America wants reunified Ireland, and if a Catholic president stays in the saddle for long enough, it may well come about irrespective of what the British want.
All right, Mr. Sajdev, quickly, sir, 10 seconds.
Sure. Thank you. Quick 2 points. I think part of the problems are kind of, interwoven right at the very foundation of this agreement. You see, it is an agreement between the power elites. This whole, it did bring the peace, right? But it's an agreement between the power elites of the unionists and the nationalists. So that, okay, fine, you have this, you have this, you have these number of seats and all. And I think that does create this whole condition of the logjam which we are seeing, one. And second, yes, depending upon how the economy goes in the coming months or years, if it gets worse, unification, the trend will be much more.
All right.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.